Hey everybody, it's Rosie here for Astrophotography. Today I'm going to do an image processing tutorial where we're going to edit my photo of NGC 7000, the North America Nebula, specifically the Cygnus wall section. And I say we because you can go to the video description below and download the calibrated TIFF file ready and edit along with me. The photo itself is just over 2 hours of data of 2-minute sub-exposures, shot on an Alta Astro 183 color camera at -15 degrees. The telescope was the Skywatcher EvoStar 80ED, and there was a 0.8 times reducer flattener in the train, as well as a Skytech L Pro Max light pollution filter. Calibrated in Deep Sky Stacker with a full set of calibration frames and dithered in between each shot. So go to the description below, get the file, open it in your editor. I use Photoshop. Open it in your editor and join me while we process this image together. I'll see you in a minute. Right, now that you've opened your image in your editor, I use Photoshop because it's just what I have and I'm familiar with. You're going to see something like this because Deep Sky Stacker doesn't apply a stretch to the pictures from when it finishes stacking. And also pictures from the 183C out of stack are always a bit darker than as if it was from a DSLR. So the first thing we have to do is a levels adjustment. We're going to need to move the white point to the levels so we can start editing. So we go to image adjustment levels. So as just briefly mentioned, levels adjusts the black, mid and white points of an image. All this here, where there's no line, there's no data. So we can safely and happily clip all that out. And then we want to start just where that data begins to appear. So that's about 18 for this picture, but obviously if you're doing it on your own, it's going to be different. What we want to do now is find the brightest and the darkest points of an image. So we're going to go to Layer, Adjustment Layer, and Threshold. So Threshold will show us the brightest and the darkest points of an image. So we slide the slider up. These are all bright points, and all this around here are dark points. So the bright points naturally are going to be a star. Dark points of an image are going to be areas of the night sky with no nebulosity or detail or anything like that. So this looks good here. Go to the eyedropper tool, and as a color sampler with a 5x5 average, we want to sample a star, and we want to sample a part of space where there's, like I said, no detail. It's just empty space. And for this picture, with the North American Nebula, all this here and over here has dust and nebulosity in it. It's very difficult to actually find a good, reliable, empty part of the sky. And from memory, there was one about here. That's just because I know this picture. But we're going to fine tune that. So I'm just going to delete the threshold layer. And yeah, to continue editing, we're going to have to do another level stretch. So image adjustment levels. And we're going to pull this in again. So there's data here, but it doesn't really start until this part over here. And so it begins to pick up about here and go up. So about 27. But we've blown the white points of the image out here. They've all gone to 255. They're white. They're losing color information. Moving the black, gray, or white points isn't going to affect that. We need to move the output level. So we can pull this slider down. And I like to put it to about 190 because I feel that gives me leeway either side. I'm going to press OK. And now we're going to balance the background colors. So the whites are all 190 between RG and B, but then on the blacks, it's 30 in the red channel, 33 value, 33 value. And this is a good time now just to make sure that you're in a nice point of the sky. Yeah, so zooming in, it looks like there might be a bit of nebulosity here. So I'm gonna put my black point sample there. If you've picked a point in the sky where there is nebulosity, you'll soon know about it because when you balance the background, you're going to have a strange color cast over your photo. So one more time, we're going to go to image adjustments and levels, and now we're going to go channel by channel. So we're going to leave this. 28 is dark enough for me, so values of 28 is happy. I'm happy enough with that. So we're going to skip the red channel. We're going to go to the green channel and move the black point of the slider down to 28. And it's also moved the whites. So we need to move the white point of the slider back up to 190. Now you might be wondering, why not drag it up to here? Because there's no data. But if you do that, you're going to soon clip the white channel again. So I leave it back down here and just balance it. And I'll balance the blue channel as well. So this is our starting point now. I'm going to name this layer BG balanced. I'm going to duplicate it, hide it. And this is a good place now for our first curve stretch. So curves along with levels are your bread and butter tools. I'm going to go to here and make an adjustment layer for curves. And curves let you manipulate the brightness values of pixels in that part of the histogram. So all the data is on this part of the histogram in the darks. So we can drag up the value of the color value of those, the brightness value of those pixels. And this is what people call the astro curve. We pull quite fierce and quite strongly on that, up on the dark side of the histogram. And again though, we've blown the whites out. We've hit the ceiling and we've got this color cast. So we're going to make another point. Going to drag that down there. And then I'm going to flatten this curve out like that. So we rescue the white values, but we've overall increased the luminance and the brightness of this image. I'm going to press Ctrl Alt Shift N plus E to make a new layer and stamp what we can see. A stamp is everything that you can actually see. It will make a duplicate of that you can then edit. So about this color cast, you can see it's got this white cast over it. We're going to go to Image, Adjustments and Levels. We're going to move the black point of the image. And I'm going to bring this in. It's your own personal taste. I don't like this much contrast personally. Some people do. And I'm probably going to move it to about there, because I still need to balance my background again, as you can see. And I'm going to balance this down to probably about 50. So I'm going to choose the red channel, balance that down to 50. I'm going to raise the white channel up to 195. Do the same for the green channel. Put the black point down to 50. White point to 195. And the blue channel. Okay. So that was our first curve stretch. We're about to do another one. So same again, adjustment layer, curves. But as you can see, the histogram's now moved. We don't need to do as harsh of a stretch. So I'm probably going to bring, this is the middle point of our data range. So I'm going to drag that probably up to about the middle point here, which is the midtones of the image. And just like before, I'm going to protect the white points by smoothing out this curve, just like that. Stamp again. Image, adjustment, levels, you know the deal now. We're going to drag this down. I'm going to put it there actually, because I'm going to balance down to 70. Or am I? No, that's still too bright. Let's go down to 50 again. For the sake of tutorial, I'm not going to spend ages balancing this stuff, because trying to balance the background can take a while. Right, so that was our second curve. And we've now got our background balanced again. And moving on from this point, I'm going to start doing selective curve stretching. So instead of applying a curve to the entire image and raising everything at the same time, I'm now going to just pick the nebulosity. So second curve balance. I'm going to just select all these. I'm just going to dump them into a folder. So to select just the nebulosity, we're going to go to Select, Color Range, Sampled Colors, and then we want to pick the pink of the nebulosity. You see the preview here? We don't want that much. So I'm going to drag the fuzziness down to about there, because we're still going to feather this selection. This is what we now have. If we go to Select, Modify, Feather, and do a feather radius about 10, what feathering does, it smooths the edges, just generally makes the transition less harsh. And that's what we're going to now affect. You can see it selected some stars over here. Don't think I want to do that. So we're going to pick the elliptical marquee. Has it selected the stars or is it outside the stars? Oh, there we go. It's outside the stars. It actually shows the halo around the stars. We'll see what happens. So we've got this selection. I'm going to copy and paste that directly in place. So we've now just only got this part of the image. And I'm going to do, I want to raise the contrast of this. I want it to pop more. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustment. Well, no, I'm going to show you this way. Go down here and make a Curves Adjustment layer. Now, if you make this adjustment, you're going to notice straight away it's affecting the entire image when I already said that's not what I want. I think that's the reset button. Where's the reset button? That one. It's because an adjustment layer affects everything below it. So if we press this button, it links it to that as a clipping mask. It links it to the layer below it. So now we only affect that selection. The contrast layer is, I'm going to drop it down in the dark tones and raise it in the brights. And this is what's known as the typical S curve. You can see why. Makes a nice little S. And even though it's subtle, like it's popping a lot more now. That's just a really modest S curve. And it's made the image pop that much more. Going to stamp that. And now I'm going to, no, I'm not going to stamp that yet. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to make a levels clipping mask. And I'm going to brighten up even more. So I want that vibrant pop. Now I'm going to stamp it. And let's see. Is there any levels that we want to do here? Not personally. I think if we do that, we're going to start blowing the image out. Do we need to balance it? That's close enough for tutorial's sake. So we're going to do the same thing now like we just did with nebulosity. So select color range, but we're now going to do it on the background. So we're going to choose a bit of the empty sky. I'm going to be a bit more with my selection. And just like before, select, modify, feather. And we've got that. Copy and paste in place. And as I mentioned already, we now just have the background. And like before, we're going to make a curve clipping mask. And I'm going to do the same kind of S curve, maybe a bit deeper. There. And let's see what effect that's had. I like that. If you're not really fond of it, you can always change the opacity of it. I think I'm going to have this 66%. Yeah. Going to stamp that again. I'm not going to duplicate this. So I've made a stamp of what I can see. I'm now going to duplicate what I can see because I'm going to do another curve stretch on the entire image. And it's just a general brightness increase. Like that. So it's raised the brightness image brightness up again, but now I'm going to change this probably to, let's see, 50%. Yeah, just modestly and just slightly raise the overall brightness of the image. So we're going to call this, don't know what we're going to call this. Mid edit, why not? And again, just to save my computer, I'm going to merge all those. Now it's time for some star reduction. Now, people sometimes will use Star Mask? Sky? I can't remember the program name actually. But there's an add-on that will automatically select, and it's how people make starless images. Or you can go to select color range. Now, instead of using sampled colors, stars are the brightest point of an image, right? They're in the highlights. So we go to select highlight, and we're going to pick about 50% fuzziness and 250 range. So anything of the 250 pixel value, brightness value. Just make sure it's not selected any nebulosity, because sometimes it will. Select all the stars. We're going to go to select, modify, and expand. I'm going to expand this by, let's see what this happens. We'll expand it by 5. Then I'm going to feather it. Let's see, we'll feather it by 3. What effect is that going to have? So we see the selection around these stars. I think that might be a bit too much. So we're going to go back in the history. Select, modify, expand by 3. Yep. And again, I'm going to do the, no, that's the wrong one. Again, I'm going to do a feather just to take that sharp edge off. Oh, forgot to duplicate that layer. I'm going to want to do that. So we've got 2 mid-edit layers now, if you missed it. So now we've got our stars selected. We're going to go to filter, other, minimum. And looking at the preview here, we can see what the minimum filter is going to do. It reduces those stars down. So if you do too much, it's just going to be horrible. It's really a really subtle change. My PC for some reason won't let me do decimals. I think an adjustment of 2 might be too much. Now we're going to try a radius of 2. Press OK, let it do its thing. And that's the before and that's the after. So it's done a really nice job in making those stars a lot smaller. It hasn't left too much of a halo around them either. But I'm actually going to set that about 66%. I don't want to completely eliminate them. I just want to soften them. See? That's off, that's on. So they've just been softened a little bit. I'm losing my voice. Okay. Star reduction. I'm going to stamp a new layer. Now for one of my favorite tools in Photoshop. It's actually the camera raw filter. So this is the kind of the tool set you'll have in Lightroom. And I like this because it gives you little sliders to play with. So you can easily just increase the contrast if you want. You can reduce or increase the highlights. So all that area, pointing at the screen like you can really see it. I'm going to raise that by 15. Now, one thing I found out with these sliders is really less is more. Like it's really tempting at first just to go to the far end of a slider, but you really should try and refrain that. Like, really should try and refrain from doing that. Clarity is like selective sharpening. See what it's doing? I like clarity a lot, but I'm only going to do probably about 25. And we can raise the vibrance a bit, probably about 5. But the main thing I'm in the camera raw for is the noise reduction tools. Now if we slide in, this isn't a lot of data, so it's quite noisy. And we're going to raise the luminance. I'm going to do quite an aggressive noise reduction. And then the color slider just helps a bit of color detail. So that's before and that's after. So it's raised the contrast, it's made it pop a little bit more, and there's a bit of noise reduction in there. Going to do the balance background again. So image adjustment levels, balance down to 45. And if you're thinking to yourself that these numbers seem completely arbitrary and that I don't know what I'm on about, you're right. They are completely arbitrary. I mean, they may mean something to some people. I know that 0 is black, 255 is white, 128 is midtones. So it's just the pixel value of that. So our blacks are not completely black. We're just a bit above. We're in 45 value. Gonna press OK. Much happier with that. Much happier with that. Should we do one more curve stretch? See what one more curve stretch does. Curves. Do a very subtle contrast curve. How does that look? I'm gonna put 33%. So it's there, but it's not. Stamp. Now, I'm not going to rebalance that for one pixel, one value. I said I'm going to do selective sharpening or make the pop. The main point of this image, I'm going to make 2 layers here, you'll see in a moment. So these two are the exact same thing. The main point of this framing was the wall here, the Cygnus wall. And it's getting lost, isn't it? So I'm going to make a very, very contrasty curve adjustment. And heck, let's go into the camera raw filter. Let's bump up some more clarity. Maybe not that much, about 30–40% clarity. And you're sitting there now probably thinking, what am I doing? We're now going to hide this. We're going to go to layer, layer mask, and hide all. So now we're looking at the layer below it. So we're looking at this layer here, visible layer, just to illustrate it. Hashtag visible layer. Make sure you reselect that layer mask. The black in the layer mask hides what's on the black, so it shows what's below the black, lets it see through. So to see through the black, we're going to need to use a white brush. So select the brush tool, select white. I'm going to use a flow of 100, and we're going to just paint over the Cygnus wall. And can you see where we're painting white in the image? It's showing through. And this is going to be a bit more apparent now. Can you see the thumbnail there? I'm going to lower my flow to 25% so we can just fill in some, soften the edges over here, change the opacity down to like 50%, not 5%. And this is all just blending this out. Done? No. It looks terrible. So our good friend, the opacity slider, is back again. 50%, 33%, 50%. So we've selectively, let's hide that. So we increase the contrast significantly on this top layer. We then hid everything with a layer mask. We then painted through the layer mask, so everywhere that's black in this image is seen, you're seeing through it. And everywhere that's white is in that contrast layer. It shows the contrast layer through. So we use the layer mask so we can see the contrast. And now we're gonna 300. We're gonna reduce the opacity of that contrast layer, just so you can just kind of let it see through. Adds that little bit of pop. We're going to go 50%. There. I'm really liking this picture now. So I'm going to go to my rectangular marquee, and I'm now finally going to do my crop. I'm going to stamp that layer one more time. Image and crop. When I shot this picture, this is not the orientation I wanted. That's not the framing. So I'm going to go to image rotation, and 180 degrees. That's what I wanted to take a picture of. And I think that is going to be it. Though you can always spend more time playing with it. So we can do another curve adjustment. Another maybe subtle. Just that little bit more pop in it. I'm going to leave it there though, or else I'm going to be here for ages. But yeah, that's how you edit a picture. And I like it. These stars are nice and soft. They're not harsh halos. And everything's just soft in this image. But where we wanted the contrast, we've got the contrast. So let's compare it to what I wanted. And this is what we got. So it's a bit more vibrant. There's a lot more saturation in the one we've just did to that one. And I think I prefer this one. Quite like the pink, but this is how I'm going to leave it. So hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you've now got kind of a clue on how to edit astrophotos, because I know when I started, I was kind of like, wow, hey. And it was really confusing and daunting. But you just pick up things over time, and this picture is now yours to practice with for as much as you want. If you do use it and you want to upload it, then you know how to find me on Instagram and Twitter. Just tag me. I would love to see how much better you do with my photo than I ever could dream of doing. So, thanks very much for watching. I hope you learned something. And if this has helped you, consider subscribing to Astrophotography. I've got some other tutorials planned. And yeah, just be free and edit to your heart's content. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. See you later. What if I remove the vibrance? Yeah, well.